Never fear of missing out by clicking that subscribe button and becoming another member of the Babylonian family. And just like my favourite track from the Lighthouse family, we're going to find out why the Aerie Master is so good at making your enemies lifted. And obviously that's down to the tier 3 mod, and we're going to look at the stats quite soon. But first, Babylon is now partnered with Raffled Up, the one-stop shop to have the chance at scoring yourself some great tech at a low price. Raffled Up has made over 1,800 people happy with their competitions, ranging from store credit, GPUs, VR sets, and even full-on PC rigs to take your game into the next level. Keep your eye out for mega bundle competitions too for your chance to win several £1,000s worth of gear, all for less than the cost of a chippy. If you fancy your chances, make sure to use our partner code in the description below and save yourself some money while also supporting us as a channel. Best of luck and enjoy the content. We could be lifted, lifted. That will be the only sing-song you'll get in this episode. Welcome back, Babylonians. My name is Songs of Rays, and we're back with another legendary guide to bring to you. And today we're looking at the Aerie Master Pump Action Shotgun, and what makes this so good. Now, the Tier 3 mod, as you might have gathered from the fact that I've just done a little bit of a sing-song, is weightlessness. Now, shots inflict time rift on enemies, and time rift raises the enemy into the air for 5 seconds. And this refreshes every single second, so technically you can keep enemies, just constantly keep them juggled up in the air, and they literally cannot do anything for you. Now, this also works against Elite, which is very handy to know, because things like the Behemoth or the Broodmother, those kind of enemies that like to charge at you and do a lot of damage, those can actually be stopped in their tracks and just make it so easy to be able to find their crit points. Now, we're going to look at what else I've done. I've paired this with a tier 3 mod of Ultimate Toxic Bullets. Now, the reason I did this is because the clip size is a very measly 3, which obviously you will be getting through very, very quickly. But because this is on my Technomancer, and I really didn't fancy reloading so often, I wanted to be able to trigger my Toxic Leg and to be able to keep it going and keep it topped up all that time. So the idea was that I would fire a shot, they would be inflicted with Toxic, they would fly up into the air, and then my second shot, because of all my my build that's dedicated to be able to do extra damage to enemies inflicted with Toxic, would then deal even more damage, and obviously that killing shot should come from the second one. Now, I've got a 78k firepower, which is quite low, but I haven't been able to find a better one, but granted, as a Technomancer, I shouldn't be using shotguns in the first place. This rolls with crit damage, healing received, and close range damage. Now, the crit damage and the close range damage is very nice to be able to have on a shotgun, as we've discussed before. The healing received is kind of negligible, it's just kind of there, I think, as a bit of filler. The clip size, as we already mentioned, is 3, and that's because this is a breach variant. The rounds per minute is 86, so it's still kind of slow. The damage is quite high at 20,512. The reload is 1.6 seconds, that's kind of quick, I suppose, and the crit multiplier is terrible at 104% damage. Now, obviously, you wouldn't necessarily be wanting to run Embalmer's Rage on this because you will see little to no benefit whatsoever. Dark Sacrifice and Killing Spree are definitely good choices, but obviously keep in mind that you will have, with Killing Spree, you will have a bit of downtime with the reload, especially if you're not being able to refresh your ammo that's in your magazine. So things like Toxic for Technomancers, or Bleed with the Vampiric Mag, things like that will do wonders for this and being able to keep it up. Now, I would recommend that if you do go for a firepower build and you have the ability to be able to increase your magazine by 50%, that you do it for this gun, because it will increase it to 5 instead of 3, which is a lot more manageable, and obviously you will get about 2 shells, 2 to 3 shells. Obviously I haven't tried Vampiric Mag, but you will get 2 shells on 40% with the Toxic Lead to be able to for your Technomancer. So let's look at the uses and the practicality of this tier 3 mod, because this has a bit more utility than the other tier 3 mods that we've looked at already in our legendary guides. Now, the raising the enemy into the air for 5 seconds and obviously being able to refresh that every single second, the main idea on paper, the idea to kind of do this is if you've got a mob in front of you, shoot a few enemies that are in front of you. Now, because this is a shotgun, every single pellet has the ability to be able to inflict time rift. So in front of you, you'll see a couple of clips that are in the background where I don't aim down sight, I just hip fire just to be able to get that liftedness on, obviously, onto or as many enemies as possible. And I can lift anywhere between 3 to 5 to 6 enemies at a time, just to be able to keep them suspended. They can't shoot me, they can't use any of their abilities, they've basically taken out the game for those 5 seconds. Now obviously I can then go and shoot them, to be able to take them out, or I can then focus on the other enemies that are then shooting at me, trying to deal damage, trying to kill me, and obviously I can then, after a second of inflicting the first ones, I can then raise them into the air as well. So the idea is that you just keep rotating between enemies, and the more times you shoot them, obviously the more times they'll be up in the air. Now, I've mentioned previously that elites are affected by this tier 3 mod, which is great, and it's great to see. Now, this is more practical on the alien kind of side of things, so the animals, so your elite Porphoros, or alpha Porphoros, the behemoths, the brood mothers, those kind of things, they're going to be lifted up into the air, and their crit spots are just going to be so easy to be able to finish off. You will see a little bit in the background, obviously, when it gets into the later part of Chemplan, because that's when the aliens do pop in. But yeah, it just makes it so much easier for you to be able to hit those crit spots, to be able to deal with that DPS, and just absolutely whittle away the elites, because sometimes they can cause trouble. Things like Stargrave with all the crawlers, Chemplans can be a little bit overwhelming with the Broodmothers, but it's more so at the end of Stargrave as well, when you've got one there. The start of the Marshland Caverns as well, where you get two of them, two of the Broodmothers. It's things like that, and obviously being able to take them out of the game for a little while, so they can't slap you down, one-shot you, whatever, all that kind of thing. It's just... It's such a good skill to be able to have. Now the problem is that obviously this will then take over a space for some other mod that obviously would have been doing DPS. So now it's a case of, do you have the utility to be able to take someone out of the game and obviously be able to refresh that onto so many enemies that are nearby, or do you try and take them out quicker, which you will have with things like Dark Sacrifice and Killing Spree and Embalmer's Rage. So the trade-offs there, I do feel like sometimes that the weightlessness, it just doesn't do enough to be able to keep you going. As a shotgun, obviously doing a CT10, this was quite fun to be able to do, but obviously going into the higher kind of rounds, you do need that extra DPS just to be able to kill things, and it's nice to know that obviously you can take them out of the game. Obviously they can't do any damage to you, but that doesn't help you with the speed and the overall clearing of the actual expedition itself. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this over, but it is quite a fun choice, and I would say that obviously if you're going for a bit more quirky, if you're looking to have a bit more fun with the game, then this mod is definitely up that alley. Now obviously, as always, I like to say if it's the gun or if it's the mod that makes this legendary, and unfortunately I absolutely despise breach variants. Those kind of pump shotguns, they have too limited of an ammo capacity, they do less damage in most cases than the normal standard variant that has double the magazine capacity, so why would you ever run a breach variant? That's just a personal pet peeve of mine. I like to think there are other people out in the community that also have the same kind of views, but yeah, anything that has breach to it, I will try and get rid of. If it's a purple, I'll obviously swap it over to a standard, but since this is attached to a legendary and we can't change that, then dismantle it straight away, get that tier 3 mod, and then just have a mess about with some of the other kind of combinations that you can do out there. As a side note, I did find out that if you freeze an enemy after they've been lifted, they can be suspended in the air for much longer, so maybe something like this onto an absolute zero, that would work wonders. You could potentially try it on the iceberg as well to be able to do obviously area of effect freeze as well, and then obviously that takes other enemies out of the game, so you can have those kind of utility weapons, but I wouldn't recommend this for this tier mod, and I wouldn't recommend this weapon to be able to use as your primary. And that is it, Babylonians. That wraps up the Aerie Master Pump Shotgun Legendary. Now, obviously, with the gameplay that's in the background, I hope you've enjoyed, I hope you've learned something useful, and if you did, please drop us a like and subscribe, and then drop us a comment to let us know when you've done that, because I will be reading every single comment that's on this video. Now, as always, keep yourself safe, keep yourself well, and I shall see you on that next video.